Global News Roundup. Diplomatic Maneuvers. Hostage. Crises and Political Sparks. In today's top stories, high-stakes international discussions unfold in the Middle East. A freed hostage makes an urgent plea for those still captive, and a music icon's political commentary ignites a fiery response. Part 1. Diplomatic Front. Middle East Engagements and Global Power Plays. Reporting from Abu Dhabi, a whirlwind diplomatic tour has seen significant engagement with leaders in the UAE. The schedule, described as grueling, involved numerous high-level meetings and impromptu speeches. The focus of these discussions has reportedly been on re-establishing strong ties, with assertions that regional players who were previously leaning towards China are now realigning with the United States. A key topic of international concern remains the ongoing conflict involving Russia and Ukraine. While a potential visit to Turkey was considered priority, was given to the UAE commitments. There's a strong assertion that a resolution to the conflict requires direct involvement, with a belief that a deal can be brokered due to established relationships with key figures, including Vladimir Putin. "I think we'll make a deal," was the confident statement, suggesting that Putin himself is tired of this whole thing, and that the conflict initially expected to conclude swiftly has not gone as planned for Moscow. The provision of Javelin missiles to Ukraine was highlighted as a significant prior action. When questioned about Putin's current stance and whether he's an obstacle to peace, the response pointed to a real rough session with Ukrainian President Zelensky, suggesting that Zelensky doesn't have the cards in the negotiation. While direct calls for Putin to cease hostilities have been made, the possibility of leveraging sanctions and banking restrictions remains on the table if a deal isn't reached. "Nobody uses leverage better than me," was the claim, referencing past actions against Iran and Venezuela. The significant financial aid provided to Ukraine by the US and Europe was also scrutinized, with questions raised about the allocation of these funds, and an assertion that Europe should have shouldered a larger burden. A firm belief was expressed that the conflict would not have occurred under a different US administration. Looking ahead, the intention to resolve the Iran situation, described as the big problem in the Middle East, was stated unequivocally, alongside addressing the humanitarian crisis affecting Palestinians with a commitment to help the starving population. In a separate but related security matter, a social media post by former FBI Director James Comey, featuring the numbers 8647 in sand, drew sharp condemnation. The post was interpreted by some as a veiled threat, with calls for him to be held to account according to the law. While deferring to legal authorities on specific actions, the sentiment expressed was that Comey described as a dirty cop and knew the implications of his post, and that it was a terrible thing. Concerns were also raised about the transparency surrounding investigations into past security incidents, including an assassination attempt, with a note of skepticism about the official explanations provided so far, despite confidence in the current personnel handling the inquiries. The overall success of the Middle East trip has prompted consideration of further foreign policy engagements, potentially including discussions with China's Xi Jinping, recognizing the taxing nature, but also the significant positive impact of such diplomatic efforts on America's global standing. Transitioning from the complexities of international diplomacy and security, our focus now shifts to a deeply personal and urgent human story emerging from the ongoing hostage crisis. Part 2. Voices of Captivity. A freed hostage's plea and the agony of waiting. The emotional reunion of freed hostage Keith Siegel with his family in February, after 484 days in Hamas captivity, serves as a poignant reminder of the human cost of conflict. Now, Siegel and other former hostages are issuing a desperate call for swift action to secure the release of those still held. Their message is stark: we are in dramatic hours that will determine the future of our loved ones, the future of Israeli society, and the future of the Middle East. Missing this historic opportunity for a deal to bring the hostages home would be a resounding failure that will be remembered in infamy forever. Siegel, visibly moved, expressed profound gratitude for his own release, attributing the breakthrough in negotiations to a change in U.S. leadership. Things changed when the current U.S. president was elected. Negotiations got on track, and I and many others were released back to our families. I'm eternally grateful for that, he stated. He directly urged both the U.S. President and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, along with mediating countries, to get negotiations on track and reach an agreement that will bring all of the 58 hostages that are still in Gaza back home as soon as possible. Recounting his harrowing experience, Siegel shared his unwavering determination to survive. From the 7th of October and throughout the whole 484 days that I was in captivity, I promised myself that I would survive and make it back to my family, he said, driven by the thought of his family's suffering. He was initially kidnapped with his wife Aviva, who was released after 51 days. Siegel then endured captivity alone or with other hostages. He presented a photo of Matan Engrist, a fellow hostage with whom he shared 60 out of 7 days locked in a room, detailing the terrible abuse and physical violence they both endured. Comparing images of Matan from October 7th to one taken after Hamas interrogation, the devastating impact of the abuse was evident. Concerns remain high for Matan's well-being, as he has not received necessary medical attention for severe injuries, including facial fractures and burns, for over 588 days. While a Hamas video from a month prior purported to show Matan alive, Siegel described the individual in the video as looking completely different, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. Current estimates suggest around 24 hostages are still presumed alive out of 58 or 59 still held. A deeply personal initiative. The Pancake Project, started by Siegel's daughter, aims to connect people to the hostages' plight through shared family memories associated with eating pancakes. A New York restaurant, 12 Chairs, was highlighted for serving pancakes to raise awareness. Siegel reiterated the urgency. I really want to stress today the urgency of getting all of the 58 hostages that are still in Gaza back home as soon as possible. While the fight for freedom continues for those held hostage, a different kind of battle, one of words and ideologies, has erupted on the international stage, sparked by a music legend's concert commentary. Part 3. Stage and State: Springsteen's political outburst and the ensuing backlash. Music icon Bruce Springsteen, currently on tour in Europe, opened a recent show not with a song but with a scathing critique of the current U.S. administration. Addressing his audience, Springsteen declared, "In my home, the America I love is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration." He accused the administration of taking sadistic pleasure in the pain that they inflict on loyal American workers, rolling back civil rights, abandoning allies, and siding with dictators. This verbal barrage prompted a swift and equally fiery response via a Truth Social post which read, "I see that highly overrated Bruce Springsteen goes to a foreign country to speak badly about the President of the United States. Never liked him, never liked his music or his radical left politics. And importantly, he's not a talented guy." Commentators have drawn parallels between Springsteen's actions and those of other celebrities who have publicly criticized political figures, suggesting it's a cry for relevance. One analyst opined that Springsteen can't read the room. Or perhaps he can, and his outburst reflects a sense that American sentiment has shifted. The question was raised, where's the ballad of Jocelyn Nungaray? Where's the ballad of Lakeem Riley? Highlighting a perceived disconnect between Springsteen's self-proclaimed status as America's balladeer and his focus. Comparisons were made to the backlash faced by the Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, after their criticism of President Bush. noting that historically, many Americans have not appreciated celebrities disparaging the U.S. president, especially to foreign audiences. The effectiveness of celebrity endorsements in politics was also questioned, citing past examples where such endorsements failed to sway election outcomes. One commentator pointed out the irony of Springsteen, who has amassed considerable wealth, lecturing about the American worker, arguing that the current occupant of the White House better represents those workers as evidenced by election results. Another media figure was quoted saying, "Kamala could not get the endorsement of the Teamsters, but she got the endorsement of Hollywood," further emphasizing the perceived divide between celebrity opinion and the views of working-class Americans. Kid Rock, in a separate interview while acknowledging some of Springsteen's musical contributions, criticized his politics as backwards and suggested he stay in Europe. The prevailing sentiment among critics was that audiences attend concerts for entertainment, not political lectures, and that Springsteen's decision to voice his criticisms in a foreign land was particularly tone-deaf, especially given populist movements gaining traction in Europe that mirror political shifts in the U.S. As these diverse events unfold on the global stage, from high-level diplomatic negotiations to deeply personal pleas for freedom and politically charged artistic expressions, one can't help but wonder, in an increasingly interconnected yet polarized world, what role will dialogue, like empathy and mutual understanding, play in shaping our collective future? What are your thoughts on these developments? Share your perspectives in the comments below.